All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Manhattan Community Board 3's Executive Committee meeting for the month of February 2023. Let us start with attendance. Go ahead, Kenya.
Paul Rangel,
Present.
Eric Diaz, Tariq Darrell,
Present.
Larissa Scheinberg. I don't see her. Kenya Hernandez, present. Amanda Liu,
Present.
Mei Lee,
Present.
Jake Gold, Jeanette Kim,
Present.
Trevor Holland, and David Crane.
Present.
Thank you.
Did you hear Amanda? Did Amanda say yes? She's on. Okay. Good. She's saying she had some internet issues. Okay. All right, who else are we missing? Okay. I'm just gonna safely assume everybody received the January Executive Committee meeting minutes. There's no questions. I'll deem them approved. Okay, approved. All right, let's start with my report. Before we move into any other topics tonight, I just wanted to go over a couple of things just for committee meetings. Well, for today's meeting, number 5 on the agenda, talking about CAB rules for voting, is going to be off the agenda. Those issues were resolved ahead of the meeting today. There was some issues with some CAB. There was a lot of overthinking, and there was potential it was going to come here, but we don't need to talk about it. It's already been resolved. It's for a separate CAB that we have representation on, but that has been resolved already in terms of how they vote. So that is off of our agenda tonight. We will not be talking about that. All right. So that's, I believe, number 5 on the agenda that Susan sent out earlier this morning. I'm sorry, I'm going back and forth between screens. Committee chairs, please double check your agendas. Make sure everything is good to go. March seems like a lengthy agenda for each committee. A lot of work gets put into it. If there's any mistakes, any wording changes before it goes out to the community and the full board, please make those changes tonight. Send them to the office tonight, so that way those changes can be made. Look over them, do a double take. That's why they get sent out. So please look at that. Make sure, I hope everybody's minutes are in. So for the vote sheet for February, so there's no hiccups there. Thank you there. Couple other things, committee meetings, some things that have been brought to my attention. I know as committee chairs, we sometimes get the discretion of how long the public gets to speak on any item. Generally, the rule of thumb is 2 minutes. So I think that's a practice that should be continued on amongst every committee chair for consistency purposes. It happens at every committee, whether it's transportation, SLA, parks, or any of that. I know sometimes some boards have done 90 seconds in the past. We are a 2 minutes one. We do it for our public session at full board. And I like to see that consistently go across the board for 2 minutes of public session for the public to speak on any item. All right. So that's that there. We did have a transition at the SLA committee. Michelle Cooper-Smith stepped down, resigned at the end of January. I want to thank Jeanette Kim for being the acting chair for this past month. That's going to be a month-to-month basis on how that plays out. And that's going to lead me into my other announcement. As I've said in via email, this is my last executive committee meeting. I will be stepping down as chair of Community Board 3 effective March 1st. I will start letting the full board know over the weekend. In terms of reasons as to why I'm stepping down. A lot of it is personal and health-wise, and I will keep it to that. Don't worry, nothing terrible is coming down the pike or anything like that. But I do have to take care of some things, and this won't be, something has to get sacrificed out of all this, and this is going to be the one, unfortunately. I will be stepping away from the board altogether as well. It's a full, complete break. It's not just stepping down as chair. I will be leaving the board completely. So I want to thank all those who've supported me in the past year and a half as chair, or a year and 3 months or whatever it is, as chair, the people I've met along the way. I want to thank in a particular way the district manager, Susan, who I had a chance to know over these past 4 years. She's been a great help to me as chair. We've had a pretty good relationship this entire time. I know I shocked the crap out of her a couple of weeks ago, and if she could have duct taped me to the chair, she would have. But thank you for your service and getting a chance to work with you since 2019 and as transportation chair and then as full board chair. Thank you for your support. Thank you for being always a good person and a friend to me over these past couple of years. And I really am super appreciative of that. And I know when my mother had died, she reached out right away. And she and Alicia, when Alicia was chair, came to my mother's funeral in October of later that year. So that was very, very good for me. It was great to see you all there. So that was important for me. So thank you. I want to thank David Crane. David, not just as parliamentarian, but he was technically my mentor this entire time on transportation. And whenever I needed to run something by him, he was always there for me, even via text. Even if my texts are short and he comes back with Bibles as a response, definitely needed and well appreciated. Sorry, I'm just fumbling over my words today. I'm just winging it. So thank you, David. I appreciate your support. You've been a good friend and a good mentor, and I know we'll remain friends. And thank you. As I told Susan a couple weeks ago, this is the last of me for now, not the last of me. So I will be back in some way, shape, or form at some point when things kind of calm down for me and I'm able to right the ship on certain things going on. But thank you to everybody, all the support. May Lee, who I got a chance to serve on Human Services with, is responsible for my first nomination to an executive committee membership, which I turned down initially when she wanted to ask me to run for assistant secretary. I politely said no at the very beginning. Little did I know what was going to be in store about a year or so later. Thank you, May. Appreciate your support. I see Larissa's on. Larissa, you've been a very good secretary. Thank you for all the opportunities of working with you. Kenyelle as well, and getting a chance to know you at different events. Thank you so much. All right. And to everybody I've had a chance to work with, thank you. What does that mean for everybody? As of March 1st, the first vice chair becomes the chair. It becomes the interim chair, which would be Eric Diaz, who I don't believe is on just of yet. We are expecting him to take the role as according to the bylaws. Whatever happens after that happens after that. I have been in communication with him, so hopefully that will work itself out. All right, I'll take any questions. Right now, the executive orders haven't changed. I haven't heard anything. Seems like we're going to be in Zoom all the way through. All right, no questions, comments, concerns. Thank you, everyone. Move to district manager and her report.
So it's not a concern or anything. I mean, thanks, Paul, of course, but what kicks off the process to elect, I guess, a second vice chair, or is that later in the meeting? Is that later on the agenda?
That won't be here. That would happen in March. That would have to happen in March because the way the bylaws have constructed, first vice chair becomes interim chair, second vice chair becomes first vice chair, and then you need to run an election for the second vice chair role. So that should happen in March. I have informed Eric that probably needs to happen at the March full board meeting. So that seat can be. So it has to happen in March. It won't happen at the February meeting because I'm still technically chair as of February 28th. Go ahead, Susan.
But in order to have it happen at March, we need to announce it and have either a search committee or, you know, something.
Well, there's a process that's outlined in the bylaws and it's a rapid one. So we should look it up, but it's true. I was premature in bringing this up.
It's okay, David. Let's talk about it offline. Maybe I'll just announce it on Tuesday night.
Paul, I probably should have put the third agenda item first, so I'm perfectly happy to have my report go after the attendance report.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. We'll switch it up. Okay, so we can promote, I believe, all three people who received letters are in the attendees list. I believe Jamie, Shirley Fennessy, and Herman Hewitt.
Okay, I just need to get Shirley promoted.
David, I'm going to ask you as parliamentarian before we move on with this. When we do the meeting when we meet with these individuals for attendance, do we move to executive session? Do we keep everything on the record?
For some reason, I can't promote Shirley. You want to try?
I'll do it.
I mean, I think we certainly could, and we probably should, because you know,
Right. We don't know what the reasons are going to be.
Publicly dispensed with, and the whole point of this is to have a friendly conversation, but you know, open feeling one as well. So I think we should.
Okay. All right,
Okay.
shall
Yeah,
we-
when we were in person, we always did that. And if there were people in the room, we had them to leave the office.
Right. I'm trying to recall back to the one we did about 3 years ago in 2020. So, but that was not on Zoom, that was face to face. So what I'll do is I do have to ask for a vote from the executive committee about moving to executive session. Am I correct, David?
Yeah, we should state what it's for,
Okay.
but also, how do we actually do it within Zoom?
You
Do we
pause the
want to-
recording. You pause the recording.
But then there are people and attendees.
Yeah, you're gonna have to ask them to leave.
Yeah. So first things first, if we're gonna move to executive session, I need to ask, the executive session vote is to move this to which is a private session. It's not publicly recorded. All right. And it's to discuss the attendance issues of the 3 attendance letters that went out last month. That is of Shirley Fennessy, Herman Hewitt, and Jamie Felber. So I'm going to ask if there's any objections to moving to executive session. Please state them now. If not, I'm going to go ahead and say we're going to move to executive session. Is there any objections? We're going to move to executive session. So I'm going to ask the attendees.
How are they
So-
going to know to come back?
So if they go in the waiting room, if they sign off and then come back on, they can stay in the waiting room until I admit them.
So
So
Susan,
there
you're
is a
gonna-
waiting room.
I don't know if we have a waiting room.
Oh.
That's the problem on this one,
Webinars don't have waiting rooms.
technically,
Oh.
right? So I'm going to ask the 2 people in the attendees list, that's Justin Wong and Will Harlow. Thank you. I'm actually going to remove you, or one removed himself. Okay, so that's 1 down. I'm going to ask you to step out of the meeting, please. They both did. I didn't even have to do anything. There we go. All right, so I am going to pause the recording right now, and we will go to an executive session. Okay, Susan, we are now going to continue with your report.
Okay, thank you. First, I want to report on 2 issues. One is OCM, Office of Cannabis Management. We sent our resolution after the full board, and I kept trying to get in touch with them afterward to say what happens now. I thought there was they would have a board meeting and we would find out what's happening, but they don't. I don't know the process. I can't find out the process. I've sent several emails to a number of people at OCM. They're totally ghosting me. I do hear they're doing this to other people also. Then I got the cell phone number for the chief of staff, called him, can't get an answer. I've called Deborah Glick's office. They called people who promised that they would get in touch with me. Not happening. They sent another email today to a number of people up there. It's very disturbing that they're treating a city agency and a community board this way. They were like our best friends and on the phone with us almost every day till we did our resolution, and now they won't even tell us the process, and nobody understands the process. It's some vague take it under consideration, but we don't even know if they did and what they considered. So it's very frustrating. They haven't had a board meeting in about a month. I keep looking. What I'm thinking of doing is going to speak at their board meeting and complain very specifically about this. And I think I'm going to try and get, since it's in Deborah Glick and Brian Kavanaugh's district, try and get them specifically, not just their office, to call. The other issue that came up, you may know that Compost Plaza has been having in their community center sewage problems for about 6 years. We've had it in our district needs, and we once worked with the Kavanaugh's office to allocate money. That didn't work out. So they have a crisis now with sewage backing up so badly that it's all over the first floor. It's coming out into the street. We ended up having a site visit. We opened the door and the smell was so bad, I couldn't even keep the door open. And we kept trying, some good people that we work with there, but I couldn't get, and we had on emails, all the elected official reps, we just couldn't get any resolution. We couldn't get any real answers. So I finally asked John Blasco, to have the congressional office take more weight, and Dan Goldman actually came down for a site visit. I think it was yesterday. Eric actually went with me. We had and reps from all the elected officials. They came up with a plan. They're getting bids. If it's not over a certain amount, they came up with a plan to rectify. If it is over a certain amount, I don't know what's going to happen. Friday, tomorrow, we're also going on a site visit with Goldman to 189 Hernandez Senior Center, which is in, 199 Allen, which is Rafael Hernandez. University Settlements runs the programs in both places. A couple of years ago, we featured University Settlement Senior Center in our, as a sidebar in our Human Services District needs. After compost, it's not going to look so bad. Nothing is going to be that way. So that are those two issues I wanted to tell people about. Since Jake isn't on and probably won't be on, I'll talk about the town hall. There were some suggestions that we have a town hall on the with NYCHA on the PACT issue. People felt like they weren't getting good information. Jake and I had a Zoom meeting with the NYCHA people, both to get information on what they've been doing as far as outreach, and they have had somewhat of a robust outreach program, but it still seems like a good idea for the community board to do this because we're like a neutral other entity. So we talked with them about having probably in April an informational town hall, and so that people have a chance to, and we can help ensure that people have proper information. Just a few things I wanted to mention. Paul had brought up the 2-minute session, speaking time. I actually, he and I got emails, or I included him on emails I had received, people asking about it. It is true. It's like going to city council. You always know you prepare a speech that has to be 2 minutes. And people do the same thing. I will say people also come to the board board office all the time to say, what is the procedure? And I think we do need consistent procedures within committees, particularly now that we're on webinars. People are complaining if they can't be seen when they speak. I don't know what the different committees are doing. Maybe David and May can speak to that. When you have people speak on a webinar, can they be seen speaking?
No, they cannot. You just hear their voice. You do not see their face. I mean, you don't see that they don't appear at all.
Yeah, this was complained about at least twice at last night's SLA or the night before. I did once because I was like, can you on video, whatever, to an applicant, they couldn't. And then it was used as sort of, this is anti-democratic, but someone from the public was complaining about this hides who is speaking and all that. But anyway, no, short answer, you cannot. If you are a attendee in a webinar that gets promoted, you can't be seen.
You can, well,
I don't believe that's true.
You can be promoted to a panelist to speak and then removed as a panelist.
I might want to check the Zoom setup on that because I believe you can adjust.
You can promote them to a panelist and that allows them to be seen, and then you remove them after they speak.
So I'm not sure exactly what was going on, but you certainly can't see them. We're just as attendees. Or what was your question, Susan?
So I believe, well, because it's coming up, I don't know if this has come up in part. The issue, there's a couple issues. One is consistency, and there's a number of things of consistency. This is new for the committees because we just went to webinars. So what I'm basically asking is for the exec to decide on a process. People in committees are used to being able to speak and be seen. And, they certainly can be, just promote them to a panelist and then remove them. I'm going to say, I think, people deserve to be seen, but it's not my decision. So I'm asking the exec to discuss it and make a decision on how it should be handled.
So what are the options? I mean, I don't think that can be handled unless we don't use a webinar or everyone is promoted.
Yes, well, those are the options. You can either allow them to talk, which does not allow them to be seen, I believe, or you can promote them to a panelist and then unpromote them, which is what we used to always do at the full board.
I'm just going to jump in really quick. So at full board, when we are doing public session, the people who sign up for public session come into the attendees list. And when we allow them to talk, they get briefly promoted into being a panelist, but they're not really a panelist. So they are seen and heard once they are promoted when on the allowed to talk feature. And when you allow them to talk, they come into the panelist portion. Right. Once you remove the allowed to talk, they go right back to the attendee list. And then that's when they don't, that's when they only see like the panelist who's speaking. They don't have any other features generally within a webinar. So that's what happens here. I'm assuming that's what's happening across the board everywhere, is that when you hit the allowed to talk, it should do the same exact thing. It moves them into the panelist portion like us right now, but then once you move them back, then that comes off. May and then Jeanette.
So it's not happening. So maybe it's just like what Susan said. You need to actually not only allow them to speak, but promote them to as a panelist. I have been to webinars where I'm allowed to speak, but I am not promoted to panelist and I'm not seen. So I agree with Susan that people deserve to be seen and heard. They should keep to their time limit. And when they're 2 minutes over, they get put back into the attendee list. So I think we're maybe just making a mistake. I mean, if people agree with that, then we're just making a mistake in how we handle the Zoom controls.
Thank you, May. Jeanette's next.
Yeah, it's honestly, the button's almost in the same exact place as the allow to talk button. I don't like if you want to see the people who are speaking, you can just turn them into panelists. It seems like simple. So I mean, I think I would prefer webinar only because that's like very contentious, and the power to kind of like focus the meeting is really helpful. But ultimately it's the same operation. People can raise their hand, we allow them to speak, and technically speaking, for me, it makes not much of a difference.
Amanda?
I think I would prefer to see or have the ability to see whoever is speaking. I think it reduces the anonymity aspect of it, and I think I prefer that. So whatever way we can do that and support that from a technological perspective, that's my.
Okay. So, oh, go ahead, David.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of webinar as a meeting. I understand that we really wanted to do it so that we could, issue people a request to attend, and we could sort of track who's who. But maybe if we promoted everyone all the time from attendee into panelist, so that we can see everybody. I do find that I can't see the members of the public. I can't unless we are listening to them right there, and I value that. So I think that maybe we should, or at least leave that an option to just promote everybody who appears as an attendee into a panelist. I would like to do that in my meetings.
So do you mind if I just jump in, Susan, really quick? If you want to make that change back to going back to that regular format and keeping exec and full board at the webinar level, I find it very effective for full board. Trust me. That's something you should think about if you want to go back to the old way. But the old way also, keep in mind, people want to take themselves off mute and start chatting and do a lot of stuff, and then it becomes.
It can. Is it difficult to just blast everyone back into attendee? I know hunting and picking at who is speaking and turning them off must be terrible.
There's pros and cons to having both forms. May, and then Susan, I'm sorry, this is your report.
I was going to say the advantage that I understood from the chairs of having a webinar is that people couldn't break in or just start chatting without being recognized. And they do that. They don't do it in person when you're in person, but if they're in a regular meeting, they do seem to do that a lot. I don't think, I do it during the full board. I don't think hitting them to promote, and I sometimes do a few people at just, a few minutes in advance. I don't think hitting them to promote and then remove is a big deal. May?
Oh no. So, if we were to be consistent in different committees, I know some committee meetings are very large and contentious, and sometimes they're just very small. But I do agree with David about seeing the other people in the room. And even if you're a panelist, you don't see who else is in the room, and that's really see their face. And sometimes that is also really important. So maybe we can just have the option of, if we wish to promote more people, or put them back, sometimes in human services, we only have 3 members of the public, so it's not a huge amount of people. And, I could see just promoting everyone to panelists if that is the case, unless they are disruptive or something. So we, can use this webinar option, but, keep ourselves, think more about promoting people so that they can be seen.
Okay, I'm trying to promote Jake.
Yeah, now that I've digested it, I have no problem keeping these webinar, and that in the smaller committees, when things aren't contentious and it's valuable to have the public sort of more present, like most of my transportation meetings, I think that I would ask my my moderator to just promote everyone from attendees, and then when I have an item which is going to have 100 people, then we wouldn't do that. So having them all start as webinar is fine. And I can simulate, the regular style by promoting. That's fine for me. there is that question of the waiting room, which would have been quite nice. By the way, there's something called, I'm sorry, I'm going back to how we handled the executive session. I'll stop.
Okay, May, did you want to speak again? Just lower hand. Okay, so just to kind of summarize, and I'm going to repeat, people will call me often or email me, particularly if they're coming to a committee for the first time, to ask the procedure. So what I tell people is that there is a presentation, then the committee members get to speak and ask questions, and then the public will always get to speak and ask questions. And I say 2 minutes. And what I've been saying about the time is it's 2 minutes unless there's a lot of people, at which time the chair might bring it down to 1 minute, because that has happened in the past. You know, there's like 15 people want to speak on one item. So, you know, I just want to like kind of get agreement from everybody that that's what I'm telling people, you know, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. The other thing, I don't know if I should bring this up now or during David's report, but I'll bring it up now. I got a call from Jimani Williams' office this afternoon. Rosie now works there. They got a call from Habitat for Humanity. They would like to do a street co-naming for Jimmy Carter on 6th Street. I believe it's between A and B, but I know for sure. And you know, David thinks it might be further east. Regardless, the issue is they want to do it really quickly. They even want to, instead of having, you know, the city council votes twice a year on street co-namings, and they're even thinking of doing a standalone city council vote for them. The issue is he's alive, and our guidelines are you must be dead for 2 years, which I mentioned our guidelines to Rosie, and she said, "You mean you wouldn't make an exception for President of the United States?" And I said, well, our guidelines do say there can be an exception. So I have to let them know whether I can put this on the agenda or not. Do we think being a past president is enough of an exception?
Well, as for the committee to decide exceptions, I guess I have no, I mean, they could do it without us. They could, you know, they have overridden us without us even issuing an opinion. So they could just do it that way, but.
Carlene has never done that.
Well, no, but she's, you know, gorgeous.
They just do the Beastie Boys.
No, that was Chris Marte. That was not.
There's been other ones too, though. They did the block of East 8th Street. It was Margarita Lopez did it.
Yes, she did. They can do it without us. Do you want them to do a co-naming for Jimmy Carter without us?
I would love to do one for Jimmy Carter. So, I mean, what do you think? Hey?
I thought the city council also had guidelines that you had to be deceased.
No.
Oh, okay.
It's tacky to name anything after anybody who's still alive.
Well,
He won't be alive. Well,
I understand that. It's sad. We don't have a packed agenda. We could put it on our agenda and do it. We would then be overriding all kinds of guidelines because there would be no petitioning, et cetera, et cetera.
No, they would do, I just told
Oh,
them
they would do a rapid that?
they're planning to do petitioning.
Okay, and the impact on the neighborhood was the Habitat for Humanity house that he built. Okay, stop.
See, May and Kenya wanted to speak.
I just want to.
Oh, no, that was from before.
Oh, Kenya? Oh, I'm not sure. Just put East 6th Street. East 6th Street. I'm not quite sure.
That's a streak. I got a lot of code names already.
Oh, but it's already co-named. Oh, yeah, I'm hoping it's wrong and it's not.
Well, my belief, because I met President Carter at the location of the first Habitat for Humanity house, and it's a building that says on the top of it, Moscott Flats.
Yes, I think that's it.
Is that the one? It's between C and D.
Oh, thank goodness. Okay, so I'll put it on the agenda. The last thing I just wanted to mention is just sort of a factual thing. I keep hearing, or I have several times heard people say, you know, we're just volunteers for the board members. You guys are not volunteers, you're public officers of a city agency, which is a lot more serious. So I just wanted to mention that. And that's it, unless there's any questions.
Wait, can you repeat that about the volunteer? Because I'm not getting paid.
You're a public, well, the borough president, you are a public officer of a city agency. You actually have weight, like a commissioner in an agency. And I believe the charter calls it, I think it's civil. I don't remember exactly what the charter calls it. I think it's part-time civil servant, but on the borough president's website, it lists you as a public officer. And the reason you're subject to open meeting and conflict of interest is because you're a public officer. But you carry weight, in a city agency. So that's a good thing. So that was my report. I have a few questions, I think, during committee reports, but that's it.
Eric has his hand up for you, Susan.
I'm sorry, I just want to wait for the district manager report to be done. Oh, just
Yeah, I'm done.
perfect. Okay, thanks, Susan. Sorry guys for coming in a little bit late. Paul, I know I must have missed, I know the announcement regarding your chair's report of stepping down and the succession plan. Just some clarity on what's the next steps for that in terms of what happens next. And I'm sorry if we're revisiting that topic here. I just came in a little late, so.
You make me do this all over again? I'm gonna do the thank yous and the whole line?
No,
No, I'm just kidding. This is what happens next. Watch. No. What happens next is Eric becomes interim chair until the election. The first vice chair. The first vice chair moves into the chair's role beginning March 1st. That's the interim chair, and then that will happen. Go ahead. What's the head shaking
I
for?
believe that
Susan?
you actually become the chair until the next full election.
Right. Chair.
It's not an
Sorry, I'm so used to saying
So-
interim at the point or acting that it just pops out. The first vice chair becomes the chair until and runs out the term until the next election, which is in November.
got it.
And the succession plan is then the second vice chair now becomes the first vice chair. So you need to have an election in March for the second vice chair role.
Okay.
I will
So-
make that announcement on Tuesday because that means you need a committee and you need nominations almost immediately. So you can have that election in March.
Fair enough. I'm thinking this is my kind of plan. My original thought was I want the new board to continue and not be kind of to stop the process. However, at this current position, I really don't see myself lasting through November in this role. I actually would see myself then stepping down also. Perhaps maybe then it's a good idea to I took time to speak briefly with our second vice chair, Tariq. He has the availability to do so to stay in during until the next election. Would it make more sense then I also step down now so that there's just one full kind of election for first and second for March, rather than we wait till March to fill second vice, then I'm gonna transition out. The then first vice chair, which Tariq will go to chair, and then we do a second vice chair again in April. But it just makes sense to just kind of step down, maybe alongside with you, Paul, just so that just one election only for March to fill 1 and 2. Would that probably streamline the process so that it doesn't look like we're doing 2 elections back to back, and it's like, oh, Eric accepted it for a month and then got out. Oh, we just came off of, Paul stepping down and, that kind of thing. So I'm just kind of throwing that out there. Would it make sense? And could we do that? I guess it's a parliamentarian question to do a first and second vice chair election in 1 month, say March.
But yeah, it certainly could be done. It's not spelled out in the bylaws, but that is, can be inferred from what's there. I'll also say that there's no nomination committee at the meeting after the resignation. So it would be at the March 1st full board meeting. Whoever is chairing would say, we have to have this special election. Either nominate yourself now, or I give you until a week or whatever to get in the nominations. And then at the very next board meeting, that election happens. So there's not the longer process of a nominations committee and so forth. But what you asked, Eric, certainly you could do that. Just basically resign at the same time as Paul.
Maybe that's rather, because I had originally thought, and I spoke briefly with Paul about, taking a month to, but after speaking with Tariq, who, he seems right, Tariq, who's with us now, he's willing to take on the task till November. Maybe we'll just kind of get that party started or get that task going now, rather than draw out another month of asking for, people to nominate themselves. What it sounds like, it's not a nominating committee, like you said, David, but it's a self-nominate, and then, right? Is that kind of what it is?
Right, or someone could nominate you, but yes, it's.
Paul,
Go ahead.
I just looked at, bylaws, according to like your resignation, this next week's full board meeting, you would then have to decide on a date in March for nominations to come through for the second vice chair position. And then we would vote in the March full board on the second vice chair. But with this, if Eric then resigns, then the second vice chair that we just nominated becomes first vice chair, and we have to open up a special election for the second vice chair again in April. So that would be the process if you're resigning.
But you also don't have to fill the role. And you can wait till the election in November.
There's that option as well.
I just dropped in the sentence that I think.
Trust me, I've read this a couple of times.
Yeah,
Oh,
it kind of means,
already.
when is the vacancy? Is it March 1st or is it?
February 28th. It wouldn't mean I would need to push it up to the actual 28th and
If you
not
did
the
that,
next day.
then the election could occur in March as opposed to. But I don't know that I don't think we're desperate to fill those other positions. Leaving them open, I don't know, man, because then if we had a situation where we, if we only had one and no vice chairs, we could end up.
Yeah, let's fill them. I even spoke about being a support to the chair. I just think the actual role of chair at this time, I've communicated this already. I think it's just not there for me for these next 6 months. But certainly I might even go ahead and nominate myself to continue as, a second or first vice chair. Happy to be supportive. So are we saying the 28th is the day to put, so that a March full board could be the election?
It's a possibility.
Okay.
That would almost, if I announce them, if it's the 28th, that means I don't run full board on Tuesday.
Yeah, I don't think we're desperate to fill those positions, but I don't think we want to leave them open for a year.
Mhm.
That's all.
So, wow, okay, so in order to run an election in March, Paul.
I can call for the election on Tuesday night,
Okay,
saying this is what's going to happen
okay,
if shit. Excuse my language, sorry, it's on public record. Yeah, 2 opportunities to call me this week and you didn't.
I guess I'll just call
Yeah,
the
what-
question now as I was thinking about it.
It's up to Paul. I actually don't think pressuring him here is a nice thing to do.
No, yeah, in fact, I feel bad. The question came to my head. And I said, let me ask what, and I didn't realize this would come up. I wouldn't want to put you on the spot, Paul. I'm just realizing in real time with you guys. I apologize. I'm just trying to figure it out.
This meeting is of a public record. I hope when it comes nomination time, people realize, the importance of the roles that they're being nominated for and the responsibilities you have signed up for. It's chair, first vice chair, second vice chair, secretaries, treasurer, any of that you've accepted a nomination for. I know I can no longer fulfill my duties, and my expectation was that the first vice chair could, at least in the next few months, but that can't happen. David, you and I will speak offline. I'll figure out stuff for Tuesday. But I can't make any decisions right now. I know.
Certainly.
I think you, myself, and Susan can talk offline, and we'll figure that out. Don't put all of this in minutes. Say discussion about succession.
All right, thanks, guys. Yeah.
All right, Susan, you still going with your report or no? No, your report's done, Susan?
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm done.
I'm sorry, I'm just pulling up my agenda. I lost it for a second.
Robert rules.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Okay.
There, Robert's rules item, go ahead.
I do want to be brief because it's been a long meeting. But first, let me throw out an idea. I kind of want to explain things that people want to know about. All of our meetings are recorded. If anyone ever encounters a situation in a meeting and like after the fact, you think it would be useful for us as a group to review it and alternatives to how the situation could be handled by a chair, do it. Reach out to me and say, look, starting at, 1 hour and 10 minutes into the meeting, I had difficulty or whatever. Can we talk about that? And I'll look at it and then I can provide advice about something very pertinent. I think this would help all of us just learn how to chair meetings better. So anyway, that said, I wanted to talk about there ought to be many votes happening at committee meetings, but they can be very informal. But if it's to be done democratically, decisions have to be made by the group. So all too often I see things done very inefficiently or undemocratically. I mean, not intentionally, and it's not egregious, but if the committee just talks and talks and talks about possibilities, but doesn't, the chair really ought to find a way to say, let's decide that point now. And then ask them, people, formulate it as some sort of either or ideally it would be a yes or no, but you could say things like, oh, we had one at our meeting, Jeanette, 1 a.m. or 2 a.m., right? It's a binary choice. You can ask people to raise their hand and then you're done with it. And it was actually a vote happened there. Or, maybe it's a little less and you say, are there any objections to doing it this way? Picking among the various options that have been thrown out. But it's more efficient to just, okay, people have been discussing this. Let's make the choice now, but make it a choice so that it's also democratic. The other thing is I see, so what I'm basically saying is that while you're working on the wording of a resolution, you are doing an amendment process to a main motion. That's the formal thing. I see is still in some committees or ones I've been to, fairly recently. Oh, do we need a motion before we vote on this? Dudes, you have been working on the resolution for the last 45 minutes. You made that motion the very first moment that you presented a draft or, that someone started collecting the language. You do not ever need a motion to go to a vote. Remember, we talked about that last month? That is called call the question. That's not a motion. That's end of debate. So If you didn't start out at the very front by saying, I move that we approve this application, and instead you just said to the team, to the committee, should we approve it or not? Let's have a show of hands. That's fine. If the majority say they want to approve it, you just had the motion, the only motion you need all night. Or for that item, right? I can tell that I'm probably not coming across very clearly here. But the moment that you are working on the language of a motion, the language of a resolution, you already have a motion. And then every change to it should be done through some sort of amendment process, even if it's very informal, but always you're making sure to ensure that you have a majority of your committee agreeing with every decision along the way. And then at the end, you just have your vote. Jeanette.
I'll take this offline with you, but considering we don't present the resolution in the first place into the public forum, like, couldn't we just presume that it's being presented after we've been working on it? Because there's no reason we can't work on a document like writing. You can sit in session and write things. It doesn't.
I'm not saying you have to write them at committee, but we already have a draft. So as soon as the draft has been presented or that the committee has, you didn't do this, by the way, last night. It's not like you're saying, okay, now we have the language all figured out. Do I have a motion? You don't do that. But Ms. May does do that before. I mean, just to call people out, but I mean, we're friendly and I like.
I'll ask you more about it later, but
it sounds good. But the thing is, don't get hung up on, do we have a motion as a fetish? You are working on a resolution. That is your motion as soon as you start working on it. But also make sure that you're doing regular votes along the way. Don't just let it slide through. So we'll do it that way. Make sure that you say, does anyone object to us doing it that way? That's all for that. Over.
Any questions for David? And not including what the definition of fetish is.
Probably should have said fetishize, but whatever. I'm not very good at grammar. Seriously, if anyone had a situation at a meeting and you think there must have been a better way to do it, reach out to me and we can talk. And then if it's appropriate, we can talk about that thing at this meeting and it will be more useful than what I just did.
So just to piggyback off what David just said, he can probably tell you all the times I send him a text message 2 hours before a meeting saying, am I clear to do this? Am I good here? I've usually double checked it, but then I'll double check with him as parliamentarian. And then I usually get the answer I was looking for anyway. But his knowledge of it helps me out a lot. And I use Robert's rules probably a lot. I think I try to do my best with it as much at full board and here to a certain extent. And at transportation, I definitely always ask David way ahead of time if we're okay here, if we do this, if I ask this, that's okay here. He's really useful in that instance, whether it's via text or via phone call or something like that. And I'll even, play Monday morning quarterback after a full board meeting and call him up and say, was I actually correct in doing that? And sometimes, because we're using the word around today, reprimands me for doing something that I probably shouldn't have done. Don't worry about it.
Advice for a better approach.
Right. So he will advise me in a certain way. And I think that's always a key thing to always have. So definitely as committee chairs, reach out to David if you have a question about something procedurally at the very best. All right. Let's keep this ship moving. Sorry, I don't have both my screens up today. Any items to promote on social media? I see a bunch of items got shared yesterday or today or something like that. Go ahead. Go ahead, Susan. Did you just say yourself off mute?
Yeah, I'm looking at the agenda. I don't think of anything, but I guess two things to ask, if I could ask about social media, is sometimes it doesn't always happen when I ask and you're going to be gone. Is this something I should try to take back into the office?
To have the office run the social media accounts.
Yeah, it's generally, when it first came up, I asked not to. Most boards, the office do that. I asked not to at that time, but, I'm thinking it might be more efficient. And, I think my current ADM could do that.
Jeanette, then Tariq, go ahead.
As someone who feels like SLA could get a little bit more support from the office, not that I'm not like calling them out. I just think process wise, there are things we can do to alleviate some of the burden of SLA. Now that I'm chair, like I'm seeing firsthand like how much work it is. There are definitely other things that I would love to like get more help from the office on. Like I would do social very quickly and easily. There's a lot of other stuff that like, I don't know. I don't really want to, I just.
So my ADM is not doing SLA stuff. Regardless, he's not doing SLA stuff.
I think my position is that I've heard other community boards leverage their like the office a bit more in the work that they're doing. And so for me to hear that we're going to give the office like social media stuff when I feel like there's like things that we spend, I'm still speaking, Susan, that the things that we spend like hours on, like it's, yeah, I'm just voicing that here.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I interrupted. I don't think this is bringing up a whole separate subject. If first of all, I mean, of what the office does and what the office doesn't. Our board members actually, there's a lot of boards. I don't know what boards you're looking at, but there's a lot of boards where the board members do a tremendous amount more work. So I don't think that's a good subject to get into right now, at that. The ADM is not doing SLA stuff. And so if you want to talk about SLA stuff right now, I don't think it's productive because I was going to ask like, I gave some reports, some information to you for the SLA meeting, which wasn't used. So I'm thinking, and my job
Maybe
is.
we can take that offline.
I think
No, it's not. I can do it during your report. I don't want to do it offline, but I'll do it during your report if you prefer.
Tariq.
Great, thank you, Paul. Susan, I think, when we talk about social media, I think to really leverage social media in the best possible way, there's strategies, communication strategies that need to be put in place, right? And so I know when you are sending me an email to post something, it might be like 9 o'clock at night, but the algorithm to just post it right there and then doesn't work for our community at some time, right? So as we are building the social media, we start to get some knowledge, statistics of just like when people are engaging on our social media platform, when's the right time to post, when's the right thing, right? So I think you and I can talk offline just to really figure out a clear strategy for social media. I'm even thinking, just now, depending on how this election stuff goes, we can possibly even do like a task force of social media from board members who are interested. There's a huge interest from board members who want to engage in social media, that if we develop just a task force, that there are many people who can post, the content, and it's something that we can just, I think you and I can sit down and figure out a strategy around it, okay?
Sure.
Okay,
Sounds good.
let's go to committee reports. Oh, look, SLA.
Sorry, this is my first meeting, so I'm not really sure what to report
Hit
on.
the, so when I generally ask for, it's a good question. What I generally ask for, do you foresee any big problems coming up at full board from community members? May have had some issues with any SLA items, any one of the rezos that was contested pretty hotly, and what should I be expecting on Tuesday night? That's usually what I look for. Is I don't need a big, well, in my final meeting, I don't need a huge report from the committees. I just need the highlights of things we may be expecting on Tuesday night.
Yep. Okay. So I think a lot of the items we had zero public comment on. So hopefully less controversy there. There were a couple Lower East Side items that we had the same speakers on for like each of the 3 or 4 of them. I think the biggest issue is going to be that we had to go with deny with STIPs for a place at 355 Bowery. It's the location of short stories. The neighborhood came out in full force. People from the building, people from the neighboring building, people from adjacent to those adjacent buildings came through. Unfortunately, the place is currently licensed OP till 4 a.m. So we found it very difficult to not put together a set of stipulations, because if we had said full out deny, I'm sure they would have gotten 4 a.m. going to the SLA. So we as a committee ended up going to 2 a.m. all night. It's as good as we got out of them, unfortunately. So I think there could be issues there. But I did try and like logicalize that during the meeting. Not that anyone watches those meetings if they didn't go, but yeah, I think that would be the biggest problem one. Obviously, we had a couple of Lower East Side locations that are always going to be an issue, but I'm not a great bellwether, like good at detecting yet, which are going to be the most problematic at full board. But I think we spent a lot of time getting to a point where at least the committee was aligned to what we were doing. In terms of writing the resolution, the vote can be the vote, but I think we're okay with the resolutions. I'm hoping we don't get any amendments.
And the second part of this, is there any questions for Jeanette? Oh, Susan, go ahead.
Yeah, on the short stories, I think I had mentioned to you and also to the representative that the shed is not in compliance. And I looked through the transcript and I just looked through it quickly and I didn't see anything about that.
No, we discussed it.
So
They said they were going to regularize it, whatever that meant. That's what I'm recalling. That was also maybe in the application, so I could be incorrect.
I
We
did
did-
tell
we
the
did
applicant
mention-
before he applied. So is that in the resolution at all could we put that in the resolution? We should let the SLA know that he's not in compliance. I also saw in the transcript that he was playing music in the shed. Is that correct? No? Okay, I was wrong. Like I said, I was looking through the transcript.
Right, it's a different operator coming on board, so.
No, I know that, but just to say, all I want to do is take advantage of the opportunity because it's our obligation to not let, somebody not be in compliance. So can we add then to the resolution that the applicant has said that they'll put the shed in compliance?
I'll just say, as we always tell board members and so forth, the place to do this is go to committee. If you have a concern, you should be.
I gave that information. I did give that information to the committee chair.
And what we did with
What
it
we
is
tell
we
them is
discussed
be
it,
at the
so-
meeting to participate.
Pardon?
What we tell people is be at the meeting to participate. I mean, it's helpful that you sent the email, I suppose, but I'm just reiterating advice that we always give.
I will also add that, Susan, I didn't ignore
Oi.
it. We did mention it. We did go over it. So I'm sorry that I
Okay.
didn't make it into the resolution.
It should.
If someone would like to make that friendly amendment, I'm
That's
not
fine.
this time.
Okay, I will write that it's one sentence up. And I actually put a call into Michael Kelly because I had mentioned it to him. I don't think it's a deal breaker whatsoever. I think it's just taking advantage of a situation. The other question I had was something similar on the one on Stanton that you denied, to put into the resolution the fact that the area is so burdened that the police have to shut down the streets on weekend nights. I think that's very important information for the SLA.
We did lift
I'm
the.
sorry, was there a question for me or?
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is the same situation. I think it's, that we should put that into the resolution. I don't know if you discussed it at the
Is
meeting.
it the deny?
It is to deny. It's the strength of
So
the.
I'll tell you what happened. We did the absolute best we could. We did pull in the whereas, because I was aware that we had whereases that we would use. I unfortunately was the institutional memory. And we did pull in the whereas clause that talked about the guidance. But the guidance talks about this, and we've always been saying the SLA is very aware of the situation. So I don't know that it's necessary to make a longer resolution.
You should add a sentence. This is exactly what the 500-foot rule says should be looked at. And it's a very unusual situation. You should add a sentence about when you say the area is overburdened, that the 7th precinct must close down the streets to control the traffic and crowds on weekend nights. I think one sentence, I can write up a sentence for that. You're making your resolution stronger to the SLA.
I appreciate that advice. I didn't realize that this was the proper venue for it. I think if you want to email me in the future, let me know that there are amendments you'd like to make.
No, I think we're discussing the committee reports. So I do want to say, when I can't go to every committee every month. I work a lot of hours. And David, I appreciate you saying I should be there. I can't be at every committee all the time. But I do give information, and I do give it very seriously. It's my job to do that. So I would appreciate if I give specific information, just as when a resident writes in or something, that you can say, and this was done previously, that the district manager gave this information. I would appreciate if you do that. Thank you.
That works for me. I think also this was my first month. So if there were some mistakes made along the way, I think that's probably it. But in the future, I can include them.
Thank you.
Yeah, but also I will say that the email that I received from you wasn't really, there were some things inconsistent with the questions I asked. So I couldn't really make it out. So
I'm sorry, I did not intend that. And if I do that again, please let me know.
Will do. Thanks.
I just want to say a comment. Jeanette, you're really new to this. Susan has been here for a very long time. You seem to be giving her a lot of attitude. You're new. You're learning like everyone else is learning. Give her a chance to see what she has to say. No, but she's being so rude. Calm down.
I understand. Everybody's got opinions about everybody. This isn't the time to start calling out people on anything. We're just here for the committee meetings and answering those questions. Rude or not, we get it. No need to call anybody out, because now we're just going to continue with the divisiveness. You're just adding more on to it. Amanda. And
I just have a quick question, Susan. Can you provide some clarity about the history of the closing the streets? I thought that was for open streets, like during COVID, how we had shut that down, but this is separate. Not sure.
Yeah, Ludlow. So I know what you're thinking of. You're thinking of Ludlow from Houston down, that's all day. But this is totally separate, and it's something the 7th precinct did. They used to have done it in the past, then they stopped, and they're doing it again in response to residents' issues on the crowds on weekend nights. So that is totally separate than Ludlow being an open street. And I think there's some other open streets, but this has nothing to do with the open streets, which I believe are open all day.
Right. This is correct. We should be mentioning this because it's an emergency situation is created, and on an emergency basis, they shut down the street, and that is pretty out of control. We talked about that. We didn't capture it.
So if I could just mention, for years, I haven't done it recently, partly for various reasons, but for years I went up and testified at the SLA hearings, and I have a very good sense of what counts and what doesn't count, up there. So that's what I'm going on, is those years of experience. So I want to try and support to make, however the board votes, I want to support to make that as good as possible, or as strong as possible, I should say. It's already.
I think it would be used. I struggle at the meetings. My objective at the meetings is to, in any saturated area, to stop any bar that is possible to be stopped. But if it cannot be stopped, to make sure that it's got a decent closing hour. I struggle to identify whether the SLA will follow our lead or not, right? Because if we say deny the bar, and the SLA is not going to follow us, we get a 4 a.m. license. So it's kind of important. Anyway, Susan, you have the most insight into what is likely to happen if we issue a denial. And I would appreciate if you could do that for us before the meeting and like distribute it to, at least to me, but I think to the committee, if the committee we could come in kind of knowing, well, our expert believes that if we deny it, it will be denied, or our expert believes they're going to issue a license because they would be Article 86, whatever the number is. That would make us so much more productive as a board. And is that a big lift?
I can do that. The only concern I have is that in the past, when I did it with chairs, there was often questions back and forth, and I can't send it to the committee and have back and forth, because then that becomes a private meeting. So it's up to you. But
Well, if it could, how about that back and forth with the chair, so that the chair could say at the meeting, because really I was so stumped a couple times, and I don't need to tell you who it is from the public, sent me some nasty emails afterwards disagreeing with my decisions.
If I may, this is part of something that I was thinking about as I go forward as chair, just thinking about how we can make this process a bit more optimal, like capture all these details. Like, I am thinking about it, David. I totally get the pain point. I think it's existed for always. So I'm thinking about process optimizations. I'll talk about them with Susan and with committee. I guess I'll like come up with something and like propose it to committee, and then like I'll talk to Susan about it, propose it at committee, see how committee feels, and then go from there. But it is something I'm certainly thinking about, and this is like all good feedback to get. But yes, in accordance with that energy.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeanette. I know it was a hell of a meeting to have this past Tuesday. So Tuesday? Might as well have been yesterday, right?
And 14
Okay.
items. It was a high watermark for that, I think.
What, for applications? It was a lot. All right.
We heard 10, like it wasn't 14. We heard 10. We
Heard 10.
rejected 1, so I only had to write 9 stamp forms. So whatever. But yeah, it was a doozy. It's fine.
Thank you for
Trial by
getting
fire.
literally. All right. Thank you. To I don't think Parks met. Parks did not meet. David, transportation.
Okay, yeah, I actually had Josh chair. We had a motion about asking for adequate notification from an agency on something, which is a routine thing. And the other one was well, it was a longer discussion, but with no resolution. I would like to, maybe Susan, I can talk offline, but I would like to know what the DOT, something in the news, and that I'm being asked about more and more often, has happened. And that is federal money has been given to DOT to do probably a traffic diet solution on the approach or exit from the Williamsburg Bridge, the Delancey Street. And people are wanting to know, what is it? And I don't want to just throw it on our agenda necessarily without knowing what it is. Could we ask someone, like, what is the time frame, or what is the money likely to be used for, or the scope? How are they going to identify that?
I've done that already.
Oh, thank you so much.
So first of all, I was at the press conference, and I did say at the press conference, when people start asking that it has to come to before the community board for a vote to approve everything. But I did ask Jackie, because we all have the same question, and she said they don't have anything yet. I suspect there is nothing. I will keep trying to get a timeline for at least some general, to get some kind of overview. I'll keep asking for that.
Okay. Of course, it's true they would have to come to us for approval for something, but getting ahead of the game a little bit, because
No,
people are
absolutely.
asking me to put it on the agenda to get ahead of the game, and I need to know what's going on. So thank you for.
Yeah, I tried to get it on this month, that they have nothing, absolutely nothing, but yes, I will keep on that every month.
May, Human Services.
Right, so we have one agenda, resolution for next week. There's a, it's about healthy and carbon-free schools, healthy school buildings. So it is part of this citywide effort. There's this coalition that's sort of shopping it around this proposal at different community boards. And I guess the goal is to have it be a borough board resolution. So it's about taking advantage of these of this financing that schools can get from the federal government to retrofit their schools to make it more carbon free and more to make it more carbon free and have a lot of energy efficient retrofits. So it's in the vote sheet, and so we didn't make a lot of changes since it's so the same document is being shopped around. The only thing we changed added a little wordsmithing from the original is that it includes provisions about jobs and all that. So we workforce development, jobs, labor unions and all that, good union jobs. So we just added something about to include local hiring as well. Okay, and then I have one question. So when we voted at the end, we had only 6 out of 14 committee members there. So we were 1 short of a quorum. And I guess I just need to know from somebody later how that goes at full board. I had forgotten. I know this had happened before, but I forgot exactly what happens.
I think we actually have to make the motion to put it on the calendar for.
Mark it in the minute or the vote sheet. It should be
Yeah.
marked as no quorum present.
Right.
I think that's the
And
word.
then, and then the vote.
Right. And then you just need someone on your committee, May, to say, I move that we adopt the drafts that for which there was no quorum present. That's all you need to do.
Hey, Larissa, are you going to be there on Tuesday?
She's not going to be there Tuesday.
Okay, I'll find someone.
Somebody else. No.
I can do it.
Yeah, I
long as they're
apologize.
marked
They
clearly,
switched
I will
our
do
training.
I'll do it for you as long as it's clearly marked. No quorum present. I will do that for you.
Okay,
And then you
thank you.
just need to say,
That's for
someone needs
both.
to second it. Yeah.
That's for both resolution, or is it one resolution or two?
We only have one resolution.
Okay, okay,
We had a lot of presentations, but we only had one reso.
okay.
Now, y'all, this is a technicality and it's a workaround to remain perfectly legal.
Okay.
Make sure you
Okay.
recognize me first. No, just kidding. Recognize the first hand that's raised.
As long as somebody just makes the motion for it, we'll be able to go with it. I think that happened last year, May. Same thing at Human Services. I think. it was the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I forgot what, yes.
That's fine. We got it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
What's next on the calendar? Sorry. No land use meeting, correct, Jake?
That's right.
All right. Okay. Before we go into the final stuff, I'm gonna pull up the resolutions for the reprimands. I'm gonna share them with you. Thank you, Jeanette, for sending it over, and I will share it with everybody. Give me 1 second. I'll start with Herman's. Everyone see that? Sorry for the formatting. I'll make sure I get it over cleaned up for the office. It's the vote title resolution to reprimand Herman Hewitt for inadequate attendance. Okay, and this is with these are the whereases are basically coming from the bylaws and the letters that were written to. And we'll get the attendance numbers. Actually, what I do need, Tariq, what I do need is the October to December number of how many meetings, percentage of meetings missed, that 3-month probationary period. Yes, David.
Are those old bylaws or the new bylaws?
No, these are new ones. I put the ones in.
I did. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's my bad if they were the old ones. I apologize.
No, it's fine. I knew it was coming. I was ready for it. The letters changed slightly, not much different. So I have the initial attendance number. What I do need from Herman and Jamie is this number right here that Herman Hewitt missed blank of his meeting obligations during the 3-month probationary period. All right, so I just need that number. I'm sorry, let me change this up. Random opportunity. We heard the February 2023 executive committee meeting. Herman Hewitt did attend.
Should I email that to you or?
You can
you want me
email
look
it to
now?
me. You can email
Okay,
it to
okay.
me. And I'll clean it up. And
I gotta find the letters. Okay.
yeah, it's the 3-month probationary period. So it's not the actual April to September window because we have those numbers. I need the actual October to December number for the resolution. Okay. May and then David.
I just had one suggestion.
Sure.
In the second, whereas Herman first attended in February, he came to exec meeting and suggested his attendance will improve. And he has been actively leading committees. Sounds a little weird. Can we say he has reduced his committee assignments so it shows that
I'm
he's
fine
done
with that.
something.
That's fine. It's okay. He's been
he has reduced his committee assignments.
He has reduced his assignments. Was a good line. Committee assignments. So is there anything else? What was it? To balance
out his time. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, man. David, Jake, Susan.
Yeah. I don't know if we might want to consider going back into executive session. I mean, this is just doctoring it up, but I'm seeing a lot of hands and we were supposed to have completed debate and just had the vote outside of executive session.
Well, I wanted to show, but all right.
I kind of feel we need to go back into executive session depending on whatever we're going to be talking about.
I think we're just.
David, my point is entirely procedural. I wanted to use it as a teaching moment. Is this one of the opportunities you would suggest that we put up for a vote if we're amending the resolution?
Well, yeah, this ought to, yeah, you are correct. That ought to have been said if there's no objection for the word change there.
Sorry.
Just to be as efficient as possible without using a lot of time. Yes. Thank you, Jake. But I also have a concrete suggestion, but I think we ought to go back into executive session before we continue this. Your call.
Yes, Susan. Before
mine's also procedural. I just want to remind you that we send out the vote sheet early afternoon tomorrow. So I need everything before then.
Oh, no. I'll get it to you tonight.
Should I go with my grammar changes or do we want to?
Hold on. So David, why would we move back to executive session? Because the whole point for me for executive session before was discussing why they were missing.
Well, debate. I mean, we now may want to go into, well, he said this and therefore. Did we just?
Well, we didn't we kind of do all that already? I'm sorry, just correct me if I'm wrong.
Happen again because we are now entertaining. We're not just voting on something.
Right. No, I know. I know, but
at committee.
I think that was the whole point of the straw poll.
Well, no, the whole point of the going into executive session is that you complete all of the wording of a motion before you come out of it. And then you come out.
I see.
Just in case people want to say something sensitive, we ought to be in executive session. Well, we could also say, please, no one say anything sensitive unless you first move us back into executive session. What I'm about to say is about grammar. Shall I go? This may be the last.
Okay, before you.
Grammar and the therefore. Represents Herman Hewitt, and then the way that it's got there and is subject, CB3 is the subject of that sentence. And CB3 is subject for removal. I think we need to at least put he is subject to removal.
Okay.
From CB3.
Any objections to that?
And his attendance is next deemed. So that probably should be only one is, but maybe if his attendance.
Repeat that. I'm sorry.
Well, when
tell me where am I going?
Well, it's at the end of the therefore.
Okay,
Really is if there is a next time, so it's if his attendance is deemed inadequate during the next review period. Technically, that's what it should be.
okay,
If his attendance is deemed inadequate during the next review period.
okay. And he's subject to removal from CB3. If
His attendance is deemed inadequate during the next. It is deemed inadequate. Yeah, during the next review period. Yeah, and then put the is back. And Jake is absolutely correct. And it is not an easy thing. It's a habit. We just as chairs always need to be in the habit of looking for validation that we have a majority on every little decision. Thank you, Jake.
To be clear, that wasn't me trying to correct Paul. That was me trying to figure out for my own edification for my meetings how to do it right.
It was
So thank you. Thank you.
I can't jump through the laptop and do something, Jake. Sorry. It's fine. It wasn't a shot. It's okay.
You want to do it this time?
I think we're fine here. I don't know if we should move back to executive session.
No.
Does anybody have anything sensitive they think that should not be on the public record?
No, but I would say, Paul, that before you show the next one, maybe make these same changes to the other one so that we don't have to like amend the next one. You know what I mean? Because we haven't seen it yet.
Give me a second. I have to get in there. Okay. Is there any other changes that need to be made to this guy, to Herman's? Okay. Stop my share really quick. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm just cleaning it up before we see the new one for Jamie. Okay, I'm gonna share screen really quickly. So I don't have access to my second monitor tonight. Okay, so this is Jamie's. Similar. The only thing I think we're gonna have to is get the same numbers for Jamie, and I'll figure that out. The only thing he had changed is this highlighted part right here, and suggested his attendance will improve as he adjusts his schedule. Is that pretty much what he hinted at, or is there something else that we needed to add in there? I don't think there was anything sensitive he divulged. Is that a good enough whereas at that? That's the only thing I kind of changed right there. Is that fair to put as what he said today? Anybody can shout it out if that's fine.
Looks good to me.
Yeah, David,
That looks good. I have another question.
go ahead.
Were there 2 review periods? So we've already passed the 3-month probation period? Because this doesn't make it clear to me.
No, there's the 6-month review period. I don't know why this got chopped into the middle. I think I copied and pasted it wrong. I'll add the second part.
Okay, because we didn't on the other one either.
Right, no, I just noticed that.
Second
I
letter.
think I just copied and pasted it wrong.
Okay,
I'll add that in,
well, what will you add in?
the
That's only
6
the
month.
second letter sent for
It's like
the,
it's like a second whereas. It's
you'll add it in now.
it was, I believe this is it. Yeah, this was it. I'll clean it up. If it screws up in some way, shape, or form, please let me know. I think it got smashed all into one. I'm sorry about that. This-
Well, that's the same one, isn't it? That's
yeah,
not,
but then it breaks off. That's why there's a third. Sorry, and this one here. It's the same thing, but it got smashed into one. I don't know how I did that.
what I'm wondering is, well, I haven't seen the language yet that you feel has been dropped out. On what you-
I'm gonna put it underneath here because
Okay.
I think I want to do the same exact thing, just change the names.
That's the one that was missing. Okay.
And it looks like it kind of got scrunched up into here by accident. So I'm taking this portion out and I'm replacing it with the original thing that we had. All right. I know we kind of it gives us that out. There we go. And that's what was missing. I knew it looked shorter somehow. All right. I'll fix the formatting. Go ahead, David.
Spell his
Yeah.
name properly if that's not correct. I don't know.
Is it without the I? Okay.
There's the first I, but not the second I.
So Jaime.
Correct.
Got it. I don't know. I like the second I. You think you'll consider a name change? Okay. No. All right. I'll clean it all up on the rest of the portions. I think it's fine. All right. And his name is certainly not Herman. All right. Any disagreements with this? Okay. So I'm going to go to, do I need separate votes on these separate resos? Or can I just do one vote on both resos? That's a question for you, David.
You know, as long as well, yeah, you can do one vote. Make it clear that people can divide their vote as they do at full board. Yeah.
Right. So I'm just going to ask for one vote on both these resos. It's the same thing with the different numbers. The numbers will be updated to reflect their attendance. So that'll be the only change when I add those in. So when Tariq gets me the December or that probationary period, I'll jump those in there as well.
I texted them to you, Paul.
Oh, okay. I haven't been staring at my phone, so I'll jump those in. So I'm gonna ask everybody. I'm gonna call this one out myself. Kenya, no, Kenya, go ahead. You have the attendance in front of you. This is for both resolutions. Yes, no, or abstain.
Paul Rango,
Yes.
Eric Diaz,
Yes.
Tariq Darrell,
Yes.
Larissa Steinberg,
She dropped off.
Kenya Hernandez, yes. Amanda Lou,
Yes.
Mei Lee,
Yes.
Jake Gold,
Yes.
Jeanette Kim,
Yes.
Trevor Holland is absent, David Green.
Abstain.
Okay.
All right. So both resos passed. They'll be on the vote sheet for full board. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Any old business? Any new business? Okay, before we adjourn and go for final attendance, I said it before, I thank everybody for your support over the past year and a half and past 4 years since I've been on the board. You may see me around, you may not. I may go back into being a secret of fame again. And, I hope I'm able to take care of all this stuff. The one thing I do want to leave you all with, conversations I've had with VP's office and me exiting and whatnot. The one thing that came up more and more, and I didn't want to share this in my report, but just right now, is the division in this board. And I hate when Dean Rangel shows up. When Dean Rangel shows up, it's a different kind of guy. And what I've noticed a lot, even on this meeting tonight, is there's a lot of animosity and just it's not good. And it's making the board overall look terrible from many perspectives. And I think it's important that we conduct ourselves in a proper way. We're not always going to agree with each other. We're not always going to like each other. We're not always we may take offense to things people say. People may not be aware they're saying certain things. And that's one thing. I think it's always okay to have an offline conversation with somebody. I don't think anybody's in this business or on this board to attack each other. I think it's important that we work together. I know there's a lot of issues on the SLA committee. I wasn't expecting Michelle's resignation when it happened. I know there was issues going on for a while, good, bad, or indifferent. And my suggestion before anybody else says anything for SLA, there really needs to be a lot of training there from everybody's perspective. Good or bad, that way everybody knows what you need to know. I don't think everybody needs to be at each other's throats or have attitude or anything like that, because then everybody's just going to want to continue the division. And that's what's happening. I'm leaving for different reasons, but it hasn't been healthy for me to see this as a chair and be like, how do I, for lack of a better word, control all of this? And hopefully you'll get a chair at some point that will be able to steer you all in the right direction. While I do feel somewhat guilty for leaving, I really don't at the same time. I got to take care of this other stuff, and hopefully it'll come back. And, the borough president's office has said I've always had a spot. I guess it was a nice thing for them to say to me the other day. But I think keep in mind, everybody's in this to help the community. You signed up to do this. We are public servants in this manner. I took this position very seriously. And I hope you all understand that. My leaving is not in one way, shape that anybody else or anything. It's me trying to figure out some of the things that I got to figure out on my end that I haven't been able to clean up over the past few months. So that's all I wanted to say on that. And I hope in the future, and as future as March 1st, that everybody can communicate amicably. I don't need you all to be friends. I need you all to be able to communicate with one another. Once the communication stops, whatever excuses we have, doesn't matter. Throw that out the window. Because you may not like a person, you may have an opinion on a person that may be favorable or unfavorable, but work with them. That's the beauty of all this stuff, right? I think David said it once, democracy is messy. Well, hell, CB3 messy right now. And I think everybody's got great attributes, and I try to see the good in all people. Use those great attributes for the better of the board. And that's all I have to say. With that, we're adjourned. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone. Oh, no, no, no,
Thank
we're
you.
not adjourned.
Roll call.
I'm sorry. I went off on, we need a final attendance. Go ahead, Kenya. I'm sorry. Boy, look at that. Go ahead.
Paul Rangle,
Yes.
Eric Diaz,
Great words, Paul. Yes.
Tariq Darrell,
Yes.
Larissa Scheinberg, Kenya Hernandez, yes. Amanda Lou,
Yes.
Mei Lee,
Yes.
Jake Gold,
Yes, with much gratitude to Paul.
Jeanette Kim,
Yes, +1 to what Jake said.
Trevor Holland, David Crane.
Yes.
That's it, right? Okay. Well, nothing else. We're adjourned, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Good night.